If you're looking to master 808s and become an 808 wizard, this video is for you. I'm Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. I need you guys to smash that like button to extend that S. If you don't know me, I'm Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. We train over 1 million producers around the world. Some have gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Polo G, Trippie Redd, Lil Baby, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Glorilla, 1 Grammys, platinum plaques for days. Shout out to you guys. What we're going to cover in this video is you guys will walk away with a comprehension around 808s, not just which 808s to slap in your mix. I'm talking about what makes an 808, what makes it punch, which makes it stand out in a mix, which 808 to choose. Okay, so firstly, we need to understand the core of what an 808 actually is. Let's open up Serum 2 here. Let's switch this to a sine wave. Okay, so let's go here, make it a sine wave. Now, what we're going to pull up is called Wave Candy. So Wave Candy will help us see the harmonics of a sound. So it makes a lot more sense. So let's open up Wave Candy, turn the color to the right click, switch this to spectrum mode, and then make this bigger. Also too in Wave Candy, I'd recommend you turn the scale up and then turn the resolution all the way up. Okay, so now we have the settings. When I hit a note, you guys can see it in Wave Candy. So essentially, without going too deep into sound design, every sound has what's called a fundamental frequency. So that's my synthesizer, y'all. Let me turn that off. So if I play a sine wave, it only plays one horizontal line here. This is called the fundamental frequency. It's the lowest frequency a sound can make, okay? Now if I lower this down an octave, we're in that 808 range, Okay, now notice it's just one horizontal line. Now, the way to make your 808 stand out is not to add a bunch of stuff. It's simply to add the second and third harmonic. If I go to the pencil tool here, it illustrates what are called harmonics. To be short, we're adding frequencies to the actual 808. So if I click here, this is the second harmonic, this is the third harmonic, this is the fourth. Now what are harmonics? They are multiples of the fundamental frequency, okay? So let's say this frequency here is, let's say we're playing this note here, 75. Okay, so if I multiply this times 2, that gives us the second harmonic. So I should have a frequency somewhere around 150, which I do right here. So you see we have 2 horizontal lines now, not just one. That's because we're adding a frequency called the second harmonic. So we have 2 frequencies now, not just one. If I add the third harmonic, we now have 3 frequencies. All right, so that is the third harmonic. And how do you get that number? You multiply 3 times the fundamental frequency. So 75, was it, times 3 gives you about 21 plus 15. So I don't know the number there. I don't even know if I did that right. Math. Yeah, 225, I think is the number there. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. So now the 808 stands out in the mix. The bass stands out in the mix. So if I turn these 2 off, you could barely hear this 808 because it's such a low frequency, our ear can't pick it up. And when I add the second and third harmonic, the bass becomes audible. We can now perceive it. So most of the time, it's not that you need some special bass. It's just you need the frequencies in your actual bass that people can actually hear more clearly. And that's how you make your 808 jump out in the mix. So with all that being said, I'm going to quickly show you guys how to sound design, just so you understand all the components of an 808. And then from here, you'll understand what plugins actually do when you're mixing. So let's start from absolute scratch. Let's start with what we call the fundamental frequency. To do this, we're going to just click some notes in here so that it repeats. So we're going to go to the 808, drop it down 2 octaves, and we need to give it an envelope. Okay, an envelope controls how long the note plays. So let's grab this envelope. Now by default, it goes to the amplitude. So now it should sound like doo. Okay, it should sound like a little pluck and then a fade. Okay, now let's increase the attack to get rid of some of that noise. Now, most 808s, like the Zaytoven 808, you're going to turn up what's called the hold parameter. So now it's going to go not boom, boom, it's going to go like boom. So that's what separates the Zaytoven 808 from your typical Roland TR 808. It has a longer hold on it, okay? And now to make this stand out, let's go to the wrench tool, the pencil tool, pardon me, and then turn on the second and third harmonics here. And now we have a more full 808. We didn't add any distortion, any saturation. Now we could just change the note that we're playing, and then we have an 808. Okay, now from this point, you want to turn down sustain if you're sound designing. Now hold is a guaranteed volume hold, where sustain just holds it for a specific amount of time at a different volume. So let's use sustain, but just with a decay curvature. Now sustained, it has to be released. This is so geeky, y'all, trust me. When you're sound designing, you basically have to give it a note length so it knows when to let go of the note. Let's hit Control L. Now again, I'm showing you all this so you guys understand the components of an 808 so that when you're choosing your 808s, you know why you're choosing it. So again, that's why most people use hold parameter instead of the sustain. Now let's change the note so it's not just playing that middle C. And now we're going to adjust the harmonics here. So think of this like a saturator or an EQ. Now other things we could do is add saturation. So let's go to the effects. Let's add some distortion here. Now, there's a lot to teach you guys. So we're going to send the sound through a filter and use the drive knob. This is also a saturator. What we're doing with this is we're adding more harmonics to the sound, because now if I look at the sound, it's not just that first, second, and third harmonic. We're getting harmonics all the way up to the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay, so this is what the drive knob is doing. If I turn it off, we do not get those harmonics. We only get the first three. Now if I add the drive knob, and I'm going to turn down the main output so we compensate for the drive signal. Let's also turn down the cutoff so that we're cutting out the other harmonics that we don't want. And now I can visually see, okay, first harmonic, second harmonic, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So we have about 6 harmonics to deal with here. I'm just going to open up the filter a little bit. There is kind of like a sweet spot with this. So let's make this 24 dB per octave so it's a little more precise. So this is about the sweet spot for this filter. And then we could turn down the volume again to compensate, but I'm going to turn it up so you guys can hear. All right, now another way to add punchiness to an 808 is add a pitch envelope. Okay, so this is the punch. You can't really add punch with a simple plugin. It's not a volume boost, it's a pitch dive. So let me show you guys what that means. We're going to create a decay curvature here under envelope 2. Let's pull the decay curvature and let's drag this over top of the coarse pitch here. And basically let's go to the matrix and set this to 1 way. So now the pitch is going pew, pew, very fast. So this is what creates the punch of an 808. It's not a plugin of a transient designer. Transient designers focus on the amplitude of a sound, whereas this is focusing on the actual tuning of the sound. Very different. Okay, so now we have to set the target range here. So the higher the pitch range, the more lasery, I guess, the sound becomes. All right, so this is where the punch comes from. The knock of the 808 comes from this feature here. Now again, you guys to go to your matrix, set it to bipolar if you want. It's very hard to tune that way though. So we're trying not to clip the output here on Serum so that we're not hearing frequencies that aren't actually there. All right, now another way to control punch is the decay curvature of the actual amplitude. And also the curvature of the decay. Okay, so from here, it's just a matter of adding saturation. I didn't realize the distortion was on that whole time. right, so now what we could do is print this to audio. We could reshape this a little bit better with decay curvature. All right, so what I'm going to do for this video is create one singular 808. And we are going to print this to audio. So there's many ways you can print to audio in FL Studio. I'm not making this about how to make 808s. I want you guys to understand the components of 808s so that you understand what you're actually trying to get out of an 808. Just record it. Now we have the 808. We could drag it in as a sample here. Let's highlight this side. Cut the sides here. Now we could drag this in as a one shot. So what I'm going to do here is just fade the intro here. And we could drag this into our channel rack with this drag tool. Now we have the 808. We could trim this, and now we have a full-on 808. So let's send this to the mixer here under channel 1. Now we could use this like a regular 808. Now it does need a little more knock in my opinion. So you guys could go back and add, different knock to it. Now on this sample itself, we can go to pre-computed effects, turn up the boost. This will pull out a lot of detail about the 808. Now I like to run my 808s through saturators. There's multiple saturators here. We're going to stick with the basic Fruity Soft Clipper. Now in order for the soft clipper to even be heard, you have to drive enough signal through it. By default, it's not really going to make a sound without you pushing the gain pretty heavily. So we're going to add an EQ before the soft clipper, and this left fader is actually a gain knob. So we're going to go to the Fruity Soft Clipper, turn the post level down first. We're going to go to the parametric EQ2 and turn this up. So now we're turning up the volume going into the Fruity Soft Clipper. So now the Fruity Soft Clipper will react. You guys can hear that saturated sound. Okay, so now we can switch the saturation types, Soft Clipper transform types. So to the right, it's going to give you more harmonics. To the left, a more compressed type sound, in my opinion. Now the 808 to me needs a little more punch. So let's go back to the actual 808 and go back to the envelope here and really get this envelope right. Usually it's just a range issue. So let's see if we could. Also too, let's use the decay curvature, but then the sustain function to basically hold the volume at a certain level. All right, so let's see what this sounds like. Now also too, I want to open up this cutoff. That's why we're missing some of the punch. Forgot we had the cutoff filter. That is half the reason why we're missing. Okay, so now we can hear the actual change. Let's pull this range back down. There we go. So now we get the knock back. So again, depending on the range here, we can be more or less knock. So again, you can't just add a plugin and get more knock. Knock does not come from volume. It comes from a pitch change. Let's also add a couple more harmonics here. See how that added that crunch? So we're up to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th harmonic here. Now we have a whole different sound. Okay, so let's sample this. This is at middle C. Let's run this through Edison. So I'm just showing you guys different ways to create different styles of 808s. You have softer 808s, punchier 808s. Let's record this in. Now the shape could be better on this 808. Not the greatest shape of an 808. So let's grab the side, truncate that. What we're going to do is fade this out so that it has an ending here. And we're going to drag this into the channel rack like so. And then we could run this through more plugins. I'm not going to sit here and go through everything about everything, but you guys can learn from me here. Let's add a plugin called Gold Clip. It's one of my favorite plugins. Alongside of Standard Clip, that's another great plugin for this next portion here. So we're going to push the volume of the 808 into this clipper, and it's going to create harmonics. So let's go to the 808, give it a hold parameter here. So now when I let go of the notes, it truncates it. We can go to the pre-computed effects here, turn up the boost. Now you guys can hear that crunch. So we can change out the distortion types, and here's where you get into 1,000 plugins. My favorite two are standard clip and the gold clip. They're my favorite for this technique here. So for a standard clip, I like using the saturation. Let's go to saturation. And also like the soft clip pro mode. Whoa. Now we get that crunch out of the 808. Okay, so we can resample this, which is 99% of the time what I actually do. Resample this into Edison. Now we can push the sound harder, but for now we're just going to leave it like this. Get rid of the sides, truncate the sides, fade out the ending here. And then again, drag this back in. So those are the characteristics of an 808 for the most part. This doesn't have a hold parameter, so it doesn't look like a Beethoven 808. So I'll show you guys how to get that type of 808 in a second here. Now 808s require a lot of tone shaping, which I did not cover in this video. See that punch? You can't EQ that in. Whereas this 808's a little bit smoother. I forgot we're running through a soft clipper. So this would be used for more like R&B, just soft kind of background 808s. You don't want this 808 to take over the entire mix. More of like a sub bass 808. Like a Future. So let's record that in just to show you guys the huge difference in sound here. Wait, that was the wrong 808. Hold up. Come on, BPM. All right, so now we have that in. It's a very soft 808, as you guys can hear. All right, so let's copy that same pattern over to the punchier 808s just to show you guys the dramatic difference in sound here. Also, too, you want right click, cut itself, make sure the 808's cut itself so it doesn't overlap. See how this one it's not built to be a tonal 808, it's built to be more of a kick because it has that punchy transient. So it sounds weird when you try to make it tonal. To add a little width to your 808, you could add the stereo delay in the sampler. It adds a little width to it. You could also add a filter if it's too bright. Okay, so just showing you guys the difference in the tone there. One more thing you guys want to understand, again, is not every 808 needs to decay or have a decay curvature, so you would add what's called the hold parameter. And this basically creates like a certain curvature to it, or you can give it a convex curvature like this. So it doesn't fade straight down, it gives it more. So let's record this in. Now, again, not the greatest tone because the range is a little high on this. we're trying to get rid of that kick part because sometimes when we stack our own kicks, they clash with the 808 because they have too much punch on the beginning due to that pitch bend. So let's record this. Not the exact Beethoven shape, but with more release tail and more curvature right here, you'd have the Beethoven 808 for the most part. Okay, so what we could do, let me think of a fast way. Let's see if we could fade this. Now that takes away the curvature. Something like this. Let's drag it back in. And let's drag it to the channel rack. Again, you could process this 1,000 times. I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys to tears. But I want you to understand why 808s hit, which 808s to use to hit, and then why you would use certain 808s over others. Like this one is more of a tonal sustained 808. This one you could also push a little bit harder because of the harmonic stack. So then I would re-record this. Let's do this as re-record. Again, the main thing, it just needs more shaping. To be a Beethoven 808, it needs more attack curvature. It's just little tiny stuff that would take us a little bit of time. Now you can right click here, cut itself. And again, this is more of a tonal 808. Okay, so we're going to copy this. And what I'm going to show you after this is practical in the field 808 text. I don't know why my tempo keeps changing. That's so weird. So this would be, it's analogous to like a res bass, for those who know what that is. Okay, so let's quickly go through, and then we're going to go through actual 808s that are in the market. So this is our like sub bass kind of 808, very soft and tonal. And we have a punchier 808, really meant for it to be more like a kick. And then we have our tonal 808, but it can be truncated to where it's short, like a kick. Okay, so now you understand the basics of the basics of the basics. Let's actually use 808s that exist. Let's use some 808s from here. So this is a characteristic of it. What is it? Really, this is not an 808, it's more of a respace, but it's a sustained bass that detunes over time. It's really a Reese patch. So this 808 has an impact, like a kick impact, and then it fades. You guys understand that this will be used more as a kick than a tonal, that type of 808, because it's not really meant for that when it has that kick transient in the beginning. This 808, let's look at it. It has a decay curvature, but it's more tonal. So I would use this for more tonality, like 808s that I know are going to change keys. Okay, because it's not super punchy. Here's another sustained type of 808. It's strictly meant for tone. Okay, so hopefully I'm starting to make sense about these 808s. Now this 808 is like a kick slash monotone 808. This is meant for just to be a kick. Because of that impact, if I play this really high pitched, you guys will hear that pitch bend. Hear that click. If I played this other 808 super high up, it doesn't have as much of a click. Whereas this one, you can hear that click. It's like, this one doesn't have that sound. That's because this one is built to be a kick. You could even see it visually with the waveform. So in this case, I would use that 808 like a kick drum. I would not use it like a tonal 808 that changes keys a lot. Okay, so let me just show you guys, in the field ways to kind of ramp up your 808s. So now that the science out the way, let's get into a couple things. I don't know why my BPM keeps changing itself to 161, y'all. There's a ghost in this session. Okay, so let's add this. Let's add the metronome. We're going to use what's called tresillo. So it's tresillo, like that. So boom, 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 tresi, dum, dum, dum. So that's the main pattern. Tre, si, yo, tre, si, tre, si, yo. It just keeps repeating. Now to get more life out of our 808s, let's run it through multiple stages. I'm just going to run through plugins that you guys have heard of before and maybe some that you haven't heard of. So the first one is going to be Fruity Fast Distort. I don't personally like the sound of this, but some people do. Okay, so I'm just showing you guys what people use. They use this to get that distortion out of it, and then they'll blend the mix level. So the 808 hits, but it's still like a little bit buzzy. What we're doing is adding harmonics here. So basically you just blend the mix level here, and some people switch it to B mode, which is a lot brighter, more of a fuzz distortion. Personally, I'm not a fan of the Fruity Fast Distort. Another plugin though is called Fruity Blood Overdrive. I rarely use this anymore, but you could pull down what's called the post gain and then turn up what's called the preamp. So this is creating harmonics over top the 808. It thins out the 808 in my opinion. So here's before. Let's pull up a wave candy so we could visually also see what we're actually doing to the waveform. Because here, I believe we're adding harmonics. So let's pull up the spectrum. Let's do it before and after. Here's before. Just look at the horizontal lines and see how high they go, how bright they are. So pretty bright. They go up to about 400 hertz. Now let's turn on the Fruity Overdrive, Fruity Blood Overdrive. And now the intensity goes all the way up till about 2 kilohertz. So we're extending the range of frequency in this case with the overdrive. But it does take away the perception of low end. So you got to be careful with this plugin there. Another plugin to get distortion. Let me think of an FL plugin. Fruity Limiter, slept on. There is a saturation knob here, which people don't know how to use really. So let me pull this over here. Basically, guys, let's move this stuff around. Turn the ceiling up and then mess with the saturation knob. And then you could turn the gain knob up. So you're turning the 808 up into the saturator. And then what I recommend is that you add an EQ after so that you can turn the volume back down with the gain knob on the far left here. So that way you're not just cranking the 808. So what we're doing is taking off some of the pointiness of the 808 and it creates some harmonic saturation here. Let me show you guys before and after. Here's before. Again, the 808's going all the way up to about 400 hertz. Then it fades. Now after that combo, the 808's going all the way up to about 1 kilohertz. Okay, so we've doubled the range with saturation and harmonics. So you guys can get crazy with the saturation. You can pull it. Now this is a high level of saturation. Let's see how high up we go with the harmonics here. And now we're going all the way up to about 700, but it's surprisingly it's contained. It's not like super high frequencies. I do like this tone. It's a nice tone. So here's before. Just very smooth, and then here's after. Now we can take it even further by going to our actual sample. You can mess with the sample delay inside the sampler here to widen it out. It depends on your track if you need to widen your 808s or not. Don't be afraid to widen your 808s. All right, so another way we can get some kind of saturation going is I showed you guys Gold Clip, but I want to show you some other options before we start getting into third-party plugins. So we can use the Fruity Compressor. Now, I wouldn't get used to this method because it's convoluted. It's not really for beginners. We have to switch it to a very specific mode. So by default, you're not going to hear saturation. So let's just hear the compressor. I think it's the Vintage and the hard mode. I forget which mode to add saturation. So now we're going to basically have a fast attack, fast release, and mess with the threshold here. And then we're going to turn up the gain. You guys can hear we're adding harmonics on our 808. So we can start shaping the harmonics with the attack curvature. So like I said, zero attack, zero release, or fast attack, fast release give you the most harmonics. And then you can slowly back off of them to create less harmonics. So here's before. Let's also make sure we're sitting at the same dB here, nominal level. So we're at what, -9. Let's go to the compressor. So we're at -4. Let's pull this down 5 dB. Make sure we're matching. Okay, so here's before. Let's just look at the harmonic content of it. Here's after. You can audibly hear it's more saturated. So we're adding a couple harmonics. It's very subtle, but it definitely adds more like upfrontness. So don't be afraid to use compression on your actual 808s. It's just most people think compression is just turning the volume down. That's not what a compressor actually does. It adds harmonics depending on how you use it. Okay, what else can you guys use? So that's what I would naturally use. Also, here's a secret, Fruity Delay 3. You might think I'm trying to make a delay here, but we're going to turn tempo sync off, turn delay time all the way down, turn feedback all the way down, turn dry level all the way down. Everything else becomes an effect. So what I want to do is use the feedback distortion here. And if I push the volume into the Fruity Delay 3, we actually get a distorted tone. So let me push the volume into it. So if I add the saturation here, and let's add some output volume. If I can find my EQ, where's the EQ? Hold on, I gotta find this EQ. Okay, the EQ is behind the wave candy, so we could turn this up. So see how we can create all these unique tones to a clean 808 to make it sound different styles of saturation. So again, let's do this chain before. Whoa, here's before. Really, that's just the volume being louder, so not a true before. Let's do this. Whoa. So here's before. And now let me add all these effects back in. Here's after. Now we could roll back some of the saturation, but again, we have to compensate for the volume. So people don't know about Fruity Delay 3. It has a secret saturation knob nobody talks about. And then you could even run this through a Fruity limiter for the final tape saturation. By turning up your ceiling, turn the saturation down. Just add that final. So that's how you make your 808 sound super full. Also with your 808s, you guys can fade the out parameter to make them shorter. This will make them more like a kick. So for your more rhythmic BPMs, sometimes you want to shorten your 808s so it acts more like a kick. So this 808's pretty dope. I'm going to actually sample this from my pack called Blueprint, which is coming out soon. It's pretty dope. It sounds good. Let's hit record on input. And also I got to make sure the 808s play spread out like this. Boom. To record. All right, so like I said, the 808 is more of a kick than a bass. Just take the edges, grab your Edison, make it bigger, take out the sides here with this tool. Trim the sides. Get rid of this, and then we're going to name it, right click here. Let's call this like 808 hard hitter. Put our website. And then we're going to save this in our Blueprint pack. We're going to have a ton of sounds on our Blueprint pack, so you guys should be getting that pretty soon. Let's see where that would even be. Blueprint drum kit. That's not the right pack. Hold a Phantom drum kit. Let's make an 808 pack. There it is. Boom. So now it's saved. All right. So now if I want to pull this from our browser, for example, I would find that folder. And this is what I would do all the time to make sure that the 808 that I just made actually sounds good. I'll go to that folder and let's make sure I actually have it loaded. Which one? I think I saved it to the wrong folder, y'all. Hold on, let me save this properly. All right, so I had to save it into the proper folder. Here it is in the browser now. And now I can right click, open this up like any other sound. And if I wanted more boost, I would turn the boost. I could use it. And now it's a super hard hitting 808, just like that. All right, so that is how you do that. Now, one more thing I'll cover, I guess, is 808 slides. So I know this video is like super technical, but if you don't learn this stuff, guys, you're not going to know why stuff works. And you're just going to be guessing and just be like trying to find a plugin for everything. So next, let's turn the out parameter up. So in order to sustain the sounds and make them slide, you have to have them overlap. So let's record some more notes in here. So let's go up an octave. Now what I usually do for slides is I'll type in a couple notes. Okay, so like these 4 notes, I want to end the phrase here. So I'll duplicate these notes. I'll highlight these notes, highlight them with Control, hit Shift, duplicate them, pull them up an octave, hit Control up, double click, and make each one of these a slide note. So now each one of these notes, the bottom notes will slide to the top notes over that amount of time, however long this note is. So let's just hear it first. So that sounds like Mario Kart. So what we're going to do is take these notes and make them shorter, hit Alt and drag them shorter. So make this longer a little bit. So it slides so fast you can't even tell it's sliding. Let's pull this down an octave. So now it goes like that. So we can pull this down an octave, Control down. And let's have this repeat. Now, some people go crazy and add like 8,000 slide notes. So you can get crazy with 808 slides. Another thing people don't talk about with 808s is ghost notes. So let's add a note in here. Let's just turn the volume down. So it goes boom, 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 like that. And we can also add a note and add a dead note by turning the velocity all the way down to 0. So it cuts off the previous note. That's anytime you want the 808 to stop, you could add a note and add a 0 value for the velocity to turn it off. So this is good for if you have an 808 pattern that you don't want to overlap into something else, you could add a note over here and just turn the velocity down to 0. So let's try the same pattern, but without a sustained 808. You know, the 808 we made, this is supposed to be more of like a kick. It's not going to slide because it doesn't have enough sustain for the 808 to slide. Especially if we go up an octave, the 808 will fade out in time before it has time to slide. So some people wonder why their slides just stop working. It's because the 808 is not long enough. Trying to think, what else is there to teach you guys about 808s? Sometimes 808 patterns sound cool when you add half steps or you go to what's called the perfect fifth. Let's copy this same pattern over. And let's add a couple half steps here. Like on the second note, let's hit shift up to add the half step. So that's just a composition technique more than a mandatory step. You could also add what's called perfect fifths. We can take our notes here and we could pull them up 7 notes. This creates the perfect fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we could also go back up to the same note up an octave, which is which is C in this case. So spread these notes out. Let's pull this up an octave. Okay, so we're also using what's called tresillo pattern. So it's tresillo, tresillo. That's a very common pattern for 808s. So at the end here it goes tresillo. It's very fast. Tresillo. These are equidistant notes. So whenever you're unsure how to do 808s, you guys could try tresillo. Ta 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 ta. So it's not triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's tresillo, 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 tresillo. It's more of a bounce than a triplet. So that's how you can jump around the octaves. Also, don't be afraid to use velocity on your 808s the same way you would any other bass or instrument. You could turn stuff up and down over time just to give it more dynamic. One last trick I'll show you guys is the 808 roll. We could drag a note out like this, hit Control L, and then we could hit Alt U on the keyboard and change the time multiplier. So we're just slicing the 808 up into different notes, and then we could right click to fade the velocity. This is using like the Roddy Ricch sound. We're going to pull up the ellipses here. Go to where it says note velocity, and then we could right click and fade the velocity down. This is was like a trend more so than people doing it nowadays. So it goes like that. People rarely use it anymore, but that's another technique you guys could try. All right, now you guys are masters of everything that makes an 808. You guys learned the fundamental frequency, the punch of an 808, the harmonics in an 808. You learned how to mix the 808. You learned how to take basic 808s and make them way stronger. And you learned how to make 808 slides and program your 808s. Go to busyworksbeats.com, sign up for a free membership at busyworksbeats.com and learn how to make beats like the pros. Peace out, guys.